Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to the Farm Animal Coalition Regional Event in India 2025. This event is brought to you by Asia for Animals Coalition, Samayu Animal Law Center, Nalsar Fish Welfare Initiative, and the Animal Law and Policy Network. I'm Varda Mehrotra. I'm the co-founder of Samayu, and it's my pleasure to open this important conversation. Over the next 2 days, we're going to be exploring some of the biggest questions shaping farmed animal advocacy and plant-based food systems in India today. We'll be discussing what's working, what's not, and how we can shift strategies to create real lasting change. Before we start the event for the day, some housekeeping notes. Vinny, if I can please request you to share those slides. Thank you so much. So first of all, if you're joining us on Zoom, please turn off the microphone for a better experience, especially those with limited internet bandwidth. Live captions and auto translations. Vinny, if you could please go to the next slide. Thank you so much. Live captions and auto translations are also available. Please click on More at the bottom of your Zoom screen, select Captions, and select your speaking and caption language. If you could go to the next slide, Vinny. We also please request that you change your name on Zoom to match the one that you registered with. Next slide, please. If you have questions, please do drop them in the chat. Our team will collect them and we'll address as many as possible during the discussions. Next slide, please. Thank you so much, ProVeg and ALPN. And I also now request the next slide so we could quickly go through the sessions that are organized for today. So today we are going to be talking about culturally relevant approaches to vegan advocacy. We'd be delving into a panel discussion on grassroots advocacy for culturally and contextually relevant plant-based change. We'd be doing another panel discussion on tasting the future, making plant-based nutrition irresistible for India and making plant-based protein accessible. That's on till 5 o'clock today. Next slide, please, Vinny. And we start with that. Thank you so much. So to kick off today, I'll be first having a fireside chat with Anushka Manchanda, a very open, honest conversation about the intersections of art, activism, and animal advocacy. So we'll dive into the challenges of engaging audiences on difficult issues, how storytelling can be a very powerful tool for change, and what works and what doesn't when we're trying to inspire people to care about animals. Kiss Nuka is a producer, composer, and performer who fuses electronic music with activism, aesthetics, and storytelling. Her work sparks curiosity and emotional connection, making audiences feel deeper about their choices. Bringing together all her creative roles, Kiss Nuka elevates her musical offerings with audiovisual pieces and photo essays, dealing with themes like the rise of the feminine, animal rights, and environmentalism to create cinematic storytelling for both the screen and the live setting. Her thought-provoking audiovisual work has won recognition at the Independent Music Awards NYC, Berlin Music Video Awards, and London Music Awards, and was on display at the World of Music Video Exhibition at Bollinger Hutta UNESCO World Heritage Site, alongside work from iconic artists like Bjork, Daft Punk, Chemical Brothers, Massive Attack, and Little Nas X. At the intersection of music, activism, and storytelling, Kiss Nuka crafts experiences that linger, challenge, and transform. So let's get started. Please join me in welcoming Kiss Nuka. Anushka, welcome to the chat. Really looking forward to our conversation today. So to kick it off, my first questions, you've always been so passionate about using art for activism. But when we last spoke, you had mentioned that when it comes to animal issues, it hasn't always worked the way you envisioned. So can you unpack that a little bit?
I think there's so many different layers to this, it's where we live, what is the value that we place on human life, forget about the value on animal life. And I think that many of these things feed into each other. For me, I have always found it harder to get people to care about um, animal rights and to think about compassion when we live in a country where there is so little value placed on even human life. So for me, to be able to have these conversations I realized really early on, well, actually, not really early on. I had to bang my head on the wall and I had to learn my lessons to realize that these conversations need to be had very strategically and not emotionally. When I came into this and I realized what was going on, I was so angry, and like many of us, in quite a dark place, really confused as to why the people that I loved and my friends and my family, who I knew as compassionate people, kind people, couldn't really understand what I was talking about, couldn't really make the connection, or didn't really want to make the connection. And this not just led to really angsty, difficult conversations, but also for me feeling like I was alone or just not understood or without support. I think over the years, the one thing that I'm very grateful for is the vegan community, the plant-based community, to be able to be held by this community, to know that there are others who feel like me. There's a lot of support and a lot of strength in that. But I think the bottom line is that um, Martin Luther King Jr. always said that you need as much strategy for peace as you need for war. And I think that this is really important. This is probably my most important lesson in all of this. Yeah. Did I answer
Yeah,
the question?
thanks. Yeah, and what was really interesting in what you said was sort of talking about your experiences of talking about this issue about animals and animal justice and veganism from a place of feeling anger and from and I think that's something a lot of activists would resonate with. I think we've all been there, and then we try out very direct messaging, which of course is also it's also important.
Yes.
But what's really interesting in what you're sharing is that as you have, explored different and as you have evolved in your own journey as an animal advocate yourself, and as especially using culture and arts, as a medium to express your beliefs, not just around animal rights, but also environmentalism and feminism. That the harsh message, the stronger messaging hasn't always worked, and that's been sort of that's really interesting to hear. And I'd love to know more from you in terms of if that hasn't worked, what has worked, in where have you found real impact?
I just want to preface this by saying that we need all kinds. And Varda, you and I had this conversation also before. For me, the reason that I changed my way of living was because I saw a video on Facebook, and then I really feel that we need all kinds. We need the people who are doing the graphic messaging, the shocking imagery. We need the people who are doing the cooking shows with the recipes and showing you how to live this alternative life. We need the people who are making, we need everyone. We need the people who are protesting, demonstrating in the street. I think, and the people who are making, plant-based clothing with slogans. We need everyone, because you never know what will touch someone. So that's the first thing. I did a lot of graphic messaging in the beginning because I didn't know that there was any other way, and I was just so angry that I couldn't see beyond that. And I remember at that point my mother saying to me that, listen, if you want to change people, you will have to do it with love. It's not going to happen if you're going to shout at them. And I was just so horrified by this idea that I was like, look at what we're talking about, and you want me to approach this with love? But I think over the years, as I've gotten older, I've realized this, that um, you have to be. There's a meme actually which is really perfectly describes this, what I'm talking about. It's like those movies where this really expensive jewel is sitting in this high vault, like a security setup, and the protagonist will come, and then there are lasers, and the protagonist has to go, like, do these acrobats to go under the laser and over the laser to steal this jewel. that's what it feels like talking to a non-vegan person about veganism. It's like, how do I make sure that this person doesn't feel attacked, because that's going to close them down? How do I make sure that this person doesn't feel guilt, because that's going to close them down? Even though I want to shake this person up, what can I say to this person that will make them see things in a different way without feeling like they're being attacked? That's the bottom line. And I realized it's easier in private, in personal conversations, like one on one with people, because you can understand, okay, this person cares about the environment, let's take that approach. This person cares, this person has is kind, is compassionate, let's take that approach. Or, oh, this person cares about physical health, let's take that approach. Oh, this person is a spiritual person, let's take that approach. So it's easier when you're talking to one person, but when you're talking online to many people, it's like, okay, how? And I think one of the most important things to do is to recognize who your audience is. At the beginning, when I was doing a lot of Bollywood work, I had there was quite a big male audience that I had. Like, I was looking at my Instagram numbers and there was like 70% men. I was like, why, yaar? But anyway, that was what it was. And I whenever I wanted to give a piece of information that I wanted people to consume, which was about animal rights, I would put a really sexy picture of myself first, whether it was on a story or whether it was on a post, so that it would get traction, you know. And then when you swipe, or the next story is the information that I want to give you. So in the beginning, I was trying this. Then I realized over a period of time, like this really worked for me. Also, what really worked for me, and it sounds really superficial, but I mean, for me, I don't care. Like, whatever gets the job done, I'm gonna do it. It doesn't matter. Now I recognize that a lot of the audience that I have are women who are in their 30s. So I can have a completely different conversation now. The way that I present my thoughts can be completely different. I can talk about feminine energy. I can talk about the exploitation of the earth, who is looked at as Mother Earth, as a feminine energy, and related to the exploitation of women, and related to the exploitation of animals, female animals. I know that I can change the way that I tell this story to reach the audience that I want to. So I think it's like, in different times for me, different things have worked. What should I speak about what hasn't worked?
Yeah, I think that would be really useful. I think everybody would really like to hear what has and what hasn't worked both, for sure.
Um, I think what hasn't worked is like direct on the nose communication. If I'm literally like, I've also found with different in art, visual art, sound, like with music, I feel like with music it's been much harder for me to communicate what I want to, because when I'm writing lyrics, and if it's something that's very direct and on the nose, if it's not, you kind of miss sometimes the point. And when you are direct and on the nose with a song about, say, animal rights, no one wants to listen to it. I have found that with visual communication, whether it's photo essays, whether imagery, whether it's video format, online, online stuff, I think there has been a much more there has been much more appreciation and openness to accept that. And for me to be able to tell a story visually has been far easier. And it's really funny because I'm a musician, but it has been much easier for me to tell that story. Yes, I can supplement that by making like a heartbreaking piece of music to support it, but I have found that to tell a story visually, that's something that's worked for me the best.
Thank you so much, Anushka. When you were sort of sharing some of your experiences, I was thinking about also this comment you made about the putting out the photos to gain traction, and
Yeah.
so many activists and advocates I have spoken to, and I think these tensions. frequently people, advocates have to face, that that whether it is feminism, whether it is consumerism, whether there are so many other issues, and these things can be so interlinked sometimes. And then how do you, it's like you said, like how do you really navigate all of these things? And I'd love to, maybe if we have time, touch upon that a little bit more. But before we go there, what I'd really be keen to hear about is, you talked about how when you started thinking about art and activism, and you made a comment about how even though your prime way of expression is music, but directly say writing songs about it is not perhaps the way. Whereas when we think about, especially as activists and campaigners and advocates, when we think about the use of culture and arts, we think that it's, we expect that it's a very direct expression, that, oh, we have a exhibition of art which is just talking about, exploitation, or we have lots of songs or films, or, and of course documentaries are very powerful. But then what I'm curious about is that clearly not all kinds of media are necessarily tuned to be a tool for social change. So, in your experience, what sort of tools, if somebody was looking at art and culture as a tool for social change, what sort of media would be more powerful, and what would be less powerful, from your vantage point?
I just want to say that there are people, like there are artists that I have seen online who are doing work with music where they are rapping about um, animal rights. Like I've seen an artist from Germany, I think, rapping about animal rights. He his it he's it's working. I think that for me that has been quite interesting the way that he's done it. So I just wanted to say that it's, again, I think it depends on your audience and who you're talking to. So one size doesn't fit all. So you need to try a couple of things and see what lands. Um, what was the other thing that you asked me? Sorry, I was thinking about this because I remember. I mean, it helps that the guy is cute. It helps that he shoots his videos in a really cool way. It's like visually aesthetic also to see. You said what are the mediums of this visual
Yeah,
communication?
what kinds of, yeah.
I mean, we are now all online. So yeah, I think it's only online. If I think about, I think it's about access. Where is your audience? If where are you talking to people the most? Because this has to be designed based on who you are and the people that you're talking to. So it's like any social media, and I'm saying social media because that's where we're being able to reach out to the maximum people. I mean, I have a YouTube channel, but unless and until I'm posting like super regularly over there, no one is coming to check anything out. Like I have to send people there. That's one extra click that they have to do to go there. So because I'm the most active on Instagram, that's the platform that I'm using. And I think this is something that everyone has to figure out for themselves. Where are you talking to people the most? And then that's where you expand, like any social media strategy.
And so can you talk a little bit about what sort of a strategy do you use? What different touch points do you think about for your audience from a culture perspective also, especially for things like leaning into anti-consumerism? We talked about how you're bringing in you're bringing in that also as an aspect to link animal issues too, and other sorts of touch points that are either uniquely Indian in that are relevant in us talking about animal issues, or culturally you see are relevant that we should be engaging with today as animal advocates.
One thing I think is also, once you recognize, oh my God, I have so many thoughts in my mind, Varda. If I go off track, then bring me back. One thing I also recognize is that you have to stick it out. You have to stay consistent, and you have to be a little bit patient. You can't just try one thing and then sit back and see, like, okay, let me see if this works. You need to, I think one of the most, or probably the most important things, and this is also is something that I also tell younger artists. I always ask them, like, who are you? What do you stand for? What's authentic to you? because it's only when you speak from a place of authenticity is when people are going to believe what you say, they're going to buy into what you say, or they're going to be inspired by what you say. For me, there was a lot of decisions that I took, I have taken in the last years with my work. I've said no to a lot of work because I did not want to work with brands that were wanted me to promote something that wasn't vegan or that wasn't cruelty free. I also really, for me, I think one of the most important things that I have been wanting to talk more about is how everything is connected. I can't be an animal rights activist and not care about the environment. I can't be someone buying polyester clothes. When you wash them, all the microplastics go into the water and go into the same environment, ruining biodiversity, changing things, for the same animals that we're trying to protect. I think everything for me in that sense is connected. So bringing it back to being authentic and to sticking it out, I think that's very important. Um, you said about, can you repeat the second part of the question?
To be honest, what I was really thinking of right now was that when you were talking about this, it almost sounds like the pathway to integrating advocacy with as from your vantage point seems to be also so rooted in personal authenticity and transformation, right? So it's almost sort of like that is the first, even if you want to explore art and culture as a medium, and then really understanding where that all fits in. So personal transformation and exploration and authenticity. And then in that context, if we were to look at storytelling, aesthetics, and messaging, what sort of is the big takeaway for an advocate who is exploring some of these tools in their advocacy, on their social media or on their Instagram, who may not have the kind of following that you do, but what sort of touch points, what would be a easy way to understand, even what we talk about, the importance of understanding your audience and what
Yeah.
sort of cultural resonance we can find with them. So any advice on that, Anushka?
I've never really been like an analytics or numbers person, but I know that you can get into that. Like you can get into your social media, you can find out which cities, do you have the maximum following from? Are these only metropolitan cities? The conversation is completely different. Are they tier one, tier two cities? Conversation is completely different. Are they more men? Are they more women? What's the age group? These are analytics that can drive the conversation, but again it comes back to, you can have all the data in the world, but if you are speaking about something that you don't really feel like, in a way that you don't really connect with, it's going to show through at some point. So I think it's like finding that sweet spot. I did a couple of tests, I was like, okay, let me try it like this. Does this work like this? So for example, is it better if I do like just speaking to camera and talking about something, talking about, maybe telling a story about a rescue that I did, or I woke up today feeling this way because I was thinking about, those calves that are separated from the, okay, maybe, does this work? Put it out there, see the response, see the numbers. Okay, maybe not, this didn't really work. Okay, let me try something else. um should I do imagery? I had done some imagery in the beginning, which was really, really shocking, and I think that really hit the point home. It was I had kind of done this prosthetic makeup to present myself as some kind of like half human, half animal creature, with like a, and I wasn't wearing anything. I was kind of naked, but it wasn't sexual at all. It was like more natural and more raw. But I had this big horn growing out of my head, and a big kind of the similar kind of a structure growing out of my back. And you see this creature, like you see a couple of stories of this creature in the wild, and the last images of this creature on the floor, and the horn is missing, and it's like completely like, here is like a wound. So it's something, I found that the response to that was really strong. So I figured, okay, so the audience that I'm talking to is like, if I do it aesthetically in this way, it's working a little bit more. Um, so for myself, I realized that photo stories are working really well. Um, I think it's something to be able to say something subtly, because most of the people that are following me are people from the arts, people who are interested in music and video. A lot of women are following me now. Um, a lot of people, most of the people are from like uh, tier one cities, like completely urban environments, with all of the everything that comes with that. So their concerns that are different, and this kind of visual communication is working for me. So I think this, and then I hate this, but selfies. This is like, it's so annoying to me, because I will spend hours and hours and hours creating, like, putting my heart and soul into creating this beautiful, like, content. I don't even want to call it content, because I feel like it's art. And then I just put a picture of myself, and that gets like so much more engagement and likes and shares. And so understanding how I can use the selfie to drive the traffic to the place or to the conversation that I want to have.
That's just such a brilliant point. And I think I was, in terms of art, using art to engage with more elite actors versus art to engage with more mass sort of public outreach, they're going to be so different. And I love how you're talking about how you're sort of integrating both of those. You're sort of like, you using them to increase impact. So that's really brilliant to hear. And with that, we've already run out of time to Q&A. And really, thank you so much, Anushka. Time's just sort of like 30 minutes just went by. Thank you so much for this conversation. And we'd love to hear from audiences. We have some time. We have 15 minutes for audience questions. So if there are questions, now would be the time to put them in. Okay, so here's a question. Anushka, how do you ensure that your vegan advocacy is secular and inclusive rather than perpetuate the perception of veganism as an upper class majoritarian movement? That is the new avatar of upper caste cultural vegetarianism, especially important given the oppression of minorities in
Yeah.
the name of cow protection.
I think that this is a very tricky space, because in the north of India, where I come from, meat is also looked as something that is part of a luxury lifestyle. It's depending on which part of the country you come from, and what your background is. So it's different in different places. I also feel like over the last years, even for me, this awareness of the caste system of India, and how it's still like, again, being in the space that I am, in the bubble that I am, I didn't even realize that this was happening. This is a couple of years ago, where I started reading about the treatment of Dalit women, and it came to me because it was a conversation about women. So I think that I would say you need to pick your battles. I was trying to talk about everything, and because like I said before, like for me, everything is connected. Like, how can you talk about feminism if you're not going to talk about animal rights? How can you talk about animal rights and not care about the environment? For me, it doesn't make any sense. How can you talk about the environment and not talk about consumerism and capitalism? Everything is connected to each other. But when you talk about everything together, it can be too much, and you also lose clarity of the conversation when you're communicating. So I really think that it's, again, recognizing your audience. Who are you speaking to? I think it's important for us to educate ourselves also, and to be aware of our privilege. Um, if I'm having this conversation with someone who's just like me, again, like I said, the conversation is completely different. So for me, I would say, choose, and you can talk about everything, because everything is connected. It's just to do it a little bit strategically, and to do it in a way, like, I think the key word is to do it strategically, being aware of where you are, your privileges, and yeah, I think the conversation is a pick is to pick your battles about what you want to speak about.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Anushka. And I think also, you spoke about, you spoke earlier also about how artists, artists also have to choose what different things that they're talking about and working on. And I can imagine also because as an artist, you are, or you're also as an icon, as a, you're also talking about your own politics and about your own beliefs, and you're really using that to talk about and raise the profile of this issue. It must also come with a lot of sort of pressures in terms of different kind of things that are interconnected, and where all can you talk about what, and is something missed out? And so I appreciate that it's not a easy space to operate in. Another question I have is that you live and work in the art world, and how do you think art and culture and artists can be connected to the animal advocacy space? How can we, because that's such an important part of the world, but that's a space where integration seems to be limited. So how do you think that could improve? What sort of work could we be doing together to advocate for animals?
I think artists, no, I not, I think I know that artists are largely sensitive, emotional people. They have the creative brain that functions better than a logical brain. It could be nice to supplement artists with facts to be able to provide them with the information that they can then build stories around. I think this is how you can work together. For example, someone who's been to a dairy farm, and in India, let's say, because we see a lot of imagery of farms from abroad. I started seeing a lot more imagery from dairy farms in India, because this is something people say, yeah, but that only happens abroad, na. In India, it doesn't happen like that. So the idea is to supplement the artists with um, the facts that they can then build stories around. This is the artists who are already aware, who are with plant-based diets. I think the other way is just for us to talk to each other. If we know that there is someone who could be open to this, then it's a conversation to be had. But everyone, you don't know what's going on in someone's head. You don't know what issues that they're dealing with. You don't know what their world is actually like. So I think that rather than focusing more on conversion, it could be to focus on making the existing taking the existing pool of people who are already doing this, and amplifying, supplementing them, and amplifying their work. I also think that it can be very, very overwhelming to think about all of these different things. I was very hard on myself for many years, and there was an incident that happened, and it kind of, I was like, okay, I don't need to be so hard on myself. And this actually made me think about the way that we are also communicating to other people. To tell someone to change overnight, it's difficult. I know that the time is now. Like, we need to act now. Everything has to happen now, because things are going like the direction that the world is going in. It's not looking good for us. But I think when we to encourage people, even artists, to take one step. Like, don't think about the whole, you don't have to overnight change your whole life. Start somewhere. Take one small step, and then another, and then another, because that's better than not doing anything at all, like being overwhelmed and not doing anything at all.
That's such a good point, Anushka. And I love in whatever you talk about how you always sort of say it differs for everybody, just sort of like that reinforces in my mind the importance of context, and how we really need to think about that. There's another question here from our participants in Bangalore. So the majority of non-vegan people think that veganism is an expensive lifestyle only for celebrities. if we see from the market scenario, many businesses increase the price of their products by just adding the word vegan. How can we advocate for plant-based lifestyle veganism in an affordable and an accessible way?
I mean, this can't be helped because we are living in a capitalistic world. Everything is about consumerism. That is the root of all our problems anyway. And um, the fact that there's like a million more vegan products in the market today than they were 10 years ago, it's not because those companies care, not all of them. They just know that there's a market now, let's give this market, let's provide for this market. Um, Again, I think it's about how you have this conversation. I don't know how you can do it artistically, but I do really funny things on my social media. Like I was in a recording studio a couple of weeks ago, and I was doing a voiceover dub, and then I had to wait for a bit. And so I did like, okay, I'm in the studio, and I was like in my voiceover voice, I'm gonna do like this little, I did this little breakdown of how you can make coconut milk at home, and in a really funny way, talking in this really sexy voiceover voice, I was able to communicate that, dude, it costs 40 rupees to make coconut milk at home that's gonna last you like 2 3 days, and it's so amazing and it's so healthy. And it's like little things like this you need to try to fit it in. Of course, like when you're out eating, when you're out, it's like daily communication, like, hey, I'm eating, I'm at my favorite spot, like I'm talking about social media, because for me that's like one of the only places that this communication is happening. I'm like, hey, I'm at my favorite dosa spot. This is like my favorite vegan meal of all time, and it's like, it's just bringing it into your daily conversations. I think I don't know how else you could do it.
Yeah, and also because daily conversations are a good way. I mean, even somebody I collaborate with for a lot of street dog work often would say that there are so many, of course, there's so many negative interactions, but there are many more unreported positive interactions that,
Hmm.
that are just everyday things that are not worth sort of talking about, because it's just sort of, and like so many cheap vegan meals
Yeah.
that we have, which are just sort of everyday meals, and those conversations are everyday.
But I
Anushka,
wanted to
any
say there
mm,
was this thing that I used to do very, very often whenever anyone used to say that, oh, I've never eaten any vegan food before, and I'd be like, एप्पल नहीं खाया तुमने कभी, केला नहीं खाया तुमने कभी, दाल नहीं खाया, like just to take a more humoristic approach. I think this is also one of the things. Humor, I have seen, works better than anything else. A heartbreaking story that can make you feel something, like we talked about Bambi, where Bambi's mother gets shot by a hunter, or Dumbo the flying elephant whose mother is taken away from him because she's in a circus, or Babe the little pig, where everyone was like wah wah wah, but nobody made the connection, to Babe being like a farmed animal. So I think those stories are really, really good. Humor is an amazing way to communicate with someone, because you make someone laugh, but you also leave them with something to think about. Sorry, you were saying. I just wanted to add this.
no, that is such a good point. Thank you so much. I think I really appreciate that addition. Anushka, any final comments for our participants who've gathered for the farmed animal event?
I want to say that because we're talking about art, it's not so easy to always keep doing this, on your own. I do think that it would be good to have like a little pool, or just have like within the animal rights community, to maybe have like a Google document where people can add their names in and say what they can do. Like, hey, I'm so and so and I can edit, or hey, I'm so and so and I can shoot, or hey, I'm so and so I can write copy. And then you have a pool of people who can all support each other, because it's not so easy doing it all alone on your own. And I think in this way, once you have like a kind of a like a database of people that everyone can reach out to, this is a great way to do your advocacy or your activism. If you have a particular skill, find another person who you can supplement with that skill, And I think in that way, we just build like this web stronger, and we can create a lot more content. I hate using this word, but this is the word. Then we can create a lot more content that can talk to people.
Thank you so much. I love closing at the note of creating networks and coming together and working together, because that's definitely the only way forward. Really, thank you so much, Anushka. It's been such a pleasure to have this very interesting and thought-provoking conversation with you. Thank you so much for being with us and for your time today. Before we close, I also want to highlight The Shift, which is an exciting new initiative that's reimagining art as a tool for farmed animal advocacy. The co-founder Manisha Singh has asked me to advise them, and it's truly one of the most creative, ambitious projects in this space. So, if today's conversation on culture, art, and advocacy was interesting to any of our audience, this is the space to watch out. Follow them out. Follow them on Instagram. They're called Voice the Shift.